Hello, my name is Dick Fleming. During the Viet Nam War, I was a member of Recon Battalion and then First Force Recon. I wrote about my stories in a book called Chasing Charlie, which is available on Amazon. You can also buy it on my website, firstforcerecon.com, where I have additional resources and photographs from my time in the service, and photographs that other men have sent me, as well as links to other areas of the recon community. So you might be interested in checking out firstforcerecon.com. I had now only about 7 weeks left in country before my 13-month tour was over, something like that. I was really short. I hadn't inherited the short timer stick yet from my friend, but I was getting there. I was looking forward to it. And when you get short after a long tour in combat of 13 months, when you start getting short, you start realizing that you might make it out of Vietnam after all. Maybe you weren't going to get killed. And you start thinking about home, and you start thinking about, getting out alive, and start thinking about all the other men that didn't make it out alive. And that's a dangerous place to be. The thoughts, if you take your attention away from the immediate present in Vietnam, and you're in deep shit. You got to be right on top of your game. But, it's almost, we used to call it the light bulb theory, when did guys get killed in the Vietnam and combat? Well, they get killed right off the bat, as soon as they first get into combat. They don't know how to act, they don't know how to behave, they don't know when to take cover and when to shoot back. They don't know any of this stuff. You just need to learn it gradually. And on the other side of things, when you get really short, guys start losing their edge. They start getting nervous in the bush. They start thinking too much and not following their instincts that had served them well for so many other months. And it's like the light bulb, toward the end of its life cycle, it starts to go. If you take a bulb out of a packet, probably it's going to fail the first time you plug it in, if it's going to fail at all. And then it's a long lifespan, and then eventually it dies. Well, that's still the same situation where we had. We heard so many stories, too, about guys who were really short and didn't make it out. Guys who had a premonition that they weren't going to make it. There was one going around from Force Recon about a guy, one of the men who was getting short, and he went up to his lieutenant and he said, I have this premonition, I'm going to get killed here. I don't want to go out on any more patrols. And the lieutenant said, okay, I'll cut you a break. They put him on a hilltop relay station. And sure enough, the North Vietnamese attacked that station and killed him. He was killed. My friend Wilson, last time I was on guard duty with him, he was getting short about the same time I had, 6-7 months. We're standing guard, and all of a sudden he yells out, "Gooks in the wire! Gooks in the wire!" And he starts firing his machine gun. Well, pandemonium erupted in our bunker there, and we all started grabbing the claymores, and guys were shooting out the wire. Couldn't see a thing, Stand down, Marines, stand down. No. There's gooks in the wire. I see them. They're over there. it. Call it Dinky Dow. You know, Dinky Dow in Vietnamese means crazy. Not his fault, you know. He had been on a lot of patrols. He had seen a lot of action. He was a good Marine. You know, real top-notch force recon guy. But after all of those months, he started to lose it. And I was getting the same way. I tell you the truth. I was starting to lose it myself. And yet I was tasked to go on another mission. That would have been my 27th time that I went out from in the helicopters. You know, sometimes we were shot out, sometimes we never made it, but you know, 27 times in 13 months, a long stretch. I don't know whether the lieutenant who was in charge of our team at that time even knew how many missions I had been on, because I had transferred over from Recon Battalion. You know, so I had done missions there as well. Hey, he wouldn't have cared anyway, I don't think. I don't think so, because he certainly didn't cut me any slack that day, and we went out into the bush. And this was going to be a normal observation post. We were going to check out see if we could find out what the enemy was doing in Charlie Ridge, aptly named Charlie Ridge. And we got in, inserted fine, no problem. And we had been told at the briefing that they had used Agent Orange in that area to subdue the NVA, you know, to eliminate their base camps. And the idea with the Agent Orange was that it would eliminate the foliage so that the airstrikes they could see the ground, and the airstrikes would be more effective. Well, that Agent Orange shit, that was a real war crime. We entered that area, and it was like entering hell. Everything was brown. That chemical killed off not only the vegetation, everything. The birds, no insects, no nothing. And the vegetation was brittle, brown and brittle. We couldn't walk. If you walked through the grass, it would shatter. It would crack and crumble and shatter. The bushes, as you walked past them, would break. Everything was killed completely. And I don't know how many years that stuff stays in effect. You know, I don't know. But for mile after mile, we walked through that wasteland of dead, completely dead vegetation. And of course the sun was beating down on it. There's no overhead cover. But it was just the sheer bleakness of that scene. It really was like walking through hell. And we passed a stream, you know. Nobody wanted to, normally we'd fill up our canteens if we had a chance, you know, but we didn't want to take a chance taking that water out of that place. And of course, we were told, you know, it's going to affect the vegetation. It's not going to affect you guys. It doesn't affect humans. Well, they knew damn well that it affected humans. It caused cancer. It was Dow Chemical. They had done studies, and they knew it was cancerous. It was a cancerous substance. And yet they sprayed it around like it was water. There's only one or two times that I've been through that Agent Orange, and I was fortunate. But maybe some of the guys were not fortunate enough. You know, I know after they came back, they got cancer, and the VA at the time, when they applied, they refused to subsidize the treatments. They said, "Oh no, it's not the Agent Orange. That couldn't be." It was only after years and years of legislation and years of of legal maneuvering that finally the VA decided to cover the poor guys that had been exposed to Agent Orange and come down with cancers and other serious illnesses. And only until very recently that the full story of how Dow covered up that chemical and its hazardous nature came to light. And probably there are people in Vietnam dying today from the effects of those bombings. Well, anyway, we made our way up. We found a road, or a trail rather, a rather large trail that was going up the ridge line, and we followed that because none of us wanted to be pushing our way through, pushing our way through that barren wasteland of dead branches. And anyway, it defeated our whole purpose. We couldn't move silently through there, and there was no cover that we could get into, so we might as well walk along the trail. We're walking along, and I was following Bo. I was covering Bo. I was maybe 10 feet behind him, and I didn't like the looks of that trail at all. And I know he didn't either. You could sort of, after a while, you got a sixth sense of where the enemy might be. It was something about the terrain, or something inside you, or there's some smell. We could smell the gooks. They use that mukluk fish sauce a lot, in their food, and you could smell that the same as they could probably smell us if we put on soap or something like that, or you can smell it in the bush, but it goes deeper than that. It's just sort of a feeling you have, and I could tell that Bo was being extra cautious, and so was I. We came to a straight area of the trail, and Bo was walking ahead cautiously, and it seemed to me that there was something wrong with the vegetation, because the Agent Orange had killed off anything that was on, all the leaves and everything that was on the trees. That was completely brown. But yet in front of us there was a spot where the leaves weren't brown exactly. They were dry, but they weren't really brown. And I touched Bo, and I said, wait a second here. And I took my rifle and I poked the ground a little bit in front of me, right by where those leaves were. And the rifle butt went right through. Like I almost fell forward on it. And, it was like a hole, and we pushed the hole aside, and it turned out to be a large punji-pit, about 10 feet deep, 10 feet deep, cut right into the middle of the trail, and covered over with a lattice work of branches on which leaves had been placed, very carefully placed. It was a killer pit. At the bottom were punji sticks sticking up out of it. When we cleared away the lattice work on top, we could see what a deadly trap that would have been. I made a picture of it here so that you can better envision it. I think there's a photograph on my website that shows it in more detail. It shows an actual example of a pit. But here it is, my best rendition of it, if you will. So the hole is about, say, 8 feet deep and about 5 feet wide. And I draw it here as square, pretty square, but it wasn't square. The sides of it on all sides were slightly indented like this. They weren't straight up and down. They were indented, but they were perfectly smooth. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how anybody could cut something into the jungle vegetation like that and have it so smooth. There'd be no way that if somebody fell in there that they could get out of it. But at the bottom was the really lethal punjis, which were were attached firmly in a strong framework of bamboo and bamboo wrapped with some sort of vines that they had. So each one of these was carefully wrapped, so it stood up perfectly straight. And those punji sticks were about 3 feet long. Perfectly sharp at the top. You know, anybody falling in there would be done for. I mean, it would have killed them. They'd be impaled on those stakes. It would have been a horrible way to go. I saw when I looked at it, it really just gave me chills, because the mere thought of falling into that, and if it wasn't for the Agent Orange, you know, we would never have seen it. I mean, if everything had been green and the trail had been covered with leaves, we would never have seen that, you know. And Bo would have been the first one to fall into it. Maybe I would have followed him. What a thing this was. Something out of a nightmare. I had nightmares about it as well. So we continued along. You know, we looked at it. I think we took some pictures of it, you know, to send back to intelligence. Continued along that road. We were looking for that trail. We were looking for a place that we might stay the night, and you know, but there was no cover around. So we gradually, when night started to fall, we moved off the trail and tried to find a place where we could stop for the night. We set up our perimeter, defensive perimeter, for the night. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, and not only couldn't I sleep, but I didn't want to sleep. I wanted to stay awake. I wanted to be. I didn't trust the other guys to be as alert as I was. And of course, that was ridiculous. I mean, you know, you got to have your sleep in order to do your job. You can't go without sleep. And yet, not only couldn't I sleep, but I didn't want to sleep, and I didn't trust the other guys. You know, that's a sign of dinky-dow again. You know, dinky-dow had affected me. And I remember going over to Truman. When Truman handed me I was supposed to hand the radio over to Truman at the end of my 2-hour stint, you know, as a communication liaison there. I said to him, you know, never mind, I'll keep it. And so I took like 2 or 3 watches, you know, with a phone. What a crazy thing to do. What a crazy thing to do. Oh. Fortunately, I made it through that last patrol, and I can't say. I'd go on. I'd tell you more about it, except I can't remember anything more. It's a blank. I don't remember whether we were shot out and made contact or saw the enemy. And all I remember is that punji-pit. And I remember, you know, we made it back to the base. You know, the C-46 came in, and we made it back to the base. So at that point, I didn't know that was my last patrol. You know, I could have been tasked with going out on a 28th mission for all I knew, but it turned out to be my last patrol in Vietnam. So, thumbs up if you like that video and like this video, and hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel. And I'll continue my stories in another video.